Hey guys, today I want to talk about expats in crisis. A lot of times people in the Philippines, or whether you're in Cambodia, China, or Panama, or Belize, or Mexico, as expats we often think that we don't have a place to turn to if we're in crisis. We're suicidal, or we have depression or anxiety or something like that. There are free places where you can talk to somebody for free. Okay, and a lot of people don't realize this. At least it can try to get you out of that crisis mode. Maybe it's something bad happened to you. Maybe something tragic that you need help with, and you need to take down this website, and it's called www.findahelpline.com. www.findahelpline.com. Okay, and if you're in the States and you're in crisis, you need free crisis and emotional support, totally confidential, you can just dial 988. Now, I want to talk about this more in depth because for expats, there's a lot going on as an expat that's different than a regular person that's living at home and has, you're living in a regular house, and you have people to fall back on. And as an expat, a lot of times we find ourselves alone, and we find ourselves in situations that can be really tragic, or something happened and you're just down and out. It could be a financial crisis. It could be an emotional crisis. Maybe somebody got hurt or something, or maybe something else happened and it just set you off. Maybe you have mental illness. You need to talk to somebody because you need emotional support or whatever. These places will help you. And let me read this again, and then I'm going to get into something here. www.findahelpline.com. And in the States, it's 988, and that's 24/7 support for people. So if you're suicidal, any of that stuff, all this stuff is going to come into play here that I'm talking about here. But what I want to talk about is this. I want to tell a story here, because when you see somebody, and usually you can tell when somebody's in crisis mode, or they need help, or they need some support, they just needed some emotional support, a shoulder to just kind of lean on at that moment or whatever. And if you let that kind of fester with them, it might send them over the edge or whatever. They might be thinking about suicide, or they might just be go into their shell and become a hermit. And you don't want anybody to live like that, or be without support when they need it. Be that friend that steps up to the plate and says, hey, you know what, I'm going to reach out to this guy. I'm going to take action, and be there for my buddy, or my friend. Or even if they're not your friend, it's somebody that might commit suicide or might hurt themselves, and you might just want to sit down, someplace, a coffee shop, a Starbucks, or whatever, or invite them to McDonald's or something, offer them a free cup of coffee or a meal or what have you. That's the way to do it, guys. It's the way to reach out to people. But I want to tell a story because this is kind of key, and will show you what can happen sometimes if you don't reach out fast enough. Because I've actually had this happen to me one time. I used to work as a therapist a long time ago. I worked for a company, and when you leave the company, they tell you you're not allowed to stay in touch with any of the people that were your clients. They would specifically tell you you're not allowed to. It can form litigation. It can be very problematic. It can be a big, huge issue. So they do not contact these people. Do not stay in touch with them. You cannot date these people. You cannot be friends with the kids. You can't take them out. You can't do anything. And I fully got that, and I fully understood that. But I had this boy one time contact me. He was an older boy. I think he was between like 19 and 21, or 18 and 21, or something like that. He had already had a kid. He was kind of a troubled youth. He come from a troubled background. He would get in trouble every once in a while with the law and other things. He had all kinds of mental health issues, and he reached out to me and called me one night just before I was actually coming over here. And I remember him talking to me, and his voice was kind of broken up. He's like, Steve, I'm in trouble. I says, are you thinking about committing suicide? He says, no, nothing like that, Steve. He says, I'm really in trouble. I'm really. I says, are you arrested? Are you at the police station? Did you rob a bank or something? What's the problem? He says, I'm in trouble. I really want to sit down and talk with you. I don't want to talk about it on the phone. I really have some issues. Steve, you're the only one I trust. I said, I understand that, but I said, I'm not allowed to work with you anymore. And I says, I'll tell you what, reach out to your therapist right now, call them. I says, but if you feel like you're going to hurt yourself or something like that, go down to the hospital, reach out, they'll help you. They'll get you some, the help that you need or whatever. I says, if you think it, or maybe sit down, talk with your mom or whatever. No, I don't want to talk to my mom about this. It's really, really bad, Steve. I'm really in trouble. Really, really, really in trouble. He kept saying it over and over and over again. And I'm like, scratching my head trying to think of what it could be, because he wasn't suicidal. It wasn't anything like that. And I says, is it drugs? And then he kind of hagged and hawed, and he says, I want to talk to you. I want to talk to you in person and tell you. And I says, well, try to contact them. I says, I have work and stuff. And I said, I have to get up early in the morning. He had called me fairly late at night. And I says, I really can't see you. And I says, I'm getting ready to leave. And I was just, I was really busy because I was just getting ready to leave to come to the Philippines. I had some time off that week at some point, and I can't remember. I told him, I says, in 3 or 4 days or 2 days, I can probably meet up with you then. I says, but I'm not supposed to. So I says, please reach out to a therapist, talk to them, and maybe they can help you. If not, I'll sit down, we'll meet at Subway for 20 minutes or half an hour, we'll talk, okay? He's like, okay. So what happened was, I told him to make sure you call me. I told him, call me on such and such a day. He never called me. Well, his mother called me up, and she told me he had passed away. He died of an OD. He was on either fentanyl or heroin. I'm thinking it was heroin. I think she said it was heroin, if I recall correctly. It was kind of tragic for me too, because I felt like I had kind of let down somebody, and it was really, really sad. And we're still told not to let these people pull us back into their lives, even though we were part of their lives already. And I kind of think that's kind of wrong, doing that to people because of what happened here. It probably would have happened anyway, because he was already hooked on the drugs or what have you, which is kind of sad. I'm not trying to justify what happened here. It's just part of the tragic story here. Unfortunately, his mother told me that, like I said, his landlord got him into it, and his landlord kind of pushed him into it, and he got really hooked. And the cops, I guess, did not press charges on her or anything, which made it even worse. And it makes you feel kind of responsible when something like that happens, even though you're not, because it's what they tell people. That these companies all tell their people, you cannot talk to these people, fraternize or be friends or whatever, have a girlfriend, or if you're a woman, have a boyfriend, whatever. You cannot talk to these people. You cannot have a relationship with them after you leave the company. Specifically, they tell you a few times, during the course of your career at these places, whatever it may be, whether it's 1 year or 10 years, that's what they tell people. I mean, it's you kind of cross that line, you're going to get in trouble. So you kind of stay away from that. But with this kid here, I could see it happening. And when you see something like that happening with a friend, where they're reaching out to you, or you see a friend that's in crisis, maybe he's sad, he's showing a lot of depression, or you haven't heard from him in a while, and you know that he just went through something, whether it be it could be anything, could be any number of things, financial crisis, divorce, break up with his girlfriend, or if it's a girl, break up with the boyfriend or whatever. Reach out to them. And it could be like a financial crisis. And for us expats, a financial crisis is huge. But don't let it get you down to the point where you're going to commit suicide. There's always a way out. And there's always a way. You might have to start at the bottom again and climb your way back up the ladder. And by that I mean, if you're broke over here in the Philippines, don't ever consider suicide. Don't ever even think about it. And we've had expats that have committed suicide over here. They have committed suicide. I tried to do some research on this, and it's hard to find the stats, but there are a couple of expats that have committed suicide. One of the ones that I had heard about, I believe it was in Cebu. I think it was down in Cebu or somewhere south of here. I guess the person had lost all his money or spent all his money, ended up taking his life. And the sad part over here is that sometimes those don't get reported to the embassy or what have you. They never get reported sometimes. The girlfriend just has the person cremated or whatever, and off they go, and ashes and everything. And that's the sad part about the whole deal, is that the guy, the family never gets to know about all this stuff. But anyway, when you're in a crisis over here, a financial crisis, you always have window 1 in the embassy to go to. Window 1 is the place to go when you need a repatriation loan. You have to have three people that they can call in the U.S., family members or friends or whatever, that are going to say no, that they cannot help you. Okay, then they will give you the repatriation loan. They'll take your passport and give you like a document to travel with, or they'll take it at the end, or somewhere along the line they'll take your passport. You'll still have the documentation to travel, but they're going to take your passport, and you have to pay that money back in order to get your passport back and be able to travel again. So keep that in mind when all this is going on. And for you veterans, let me just say this: there is tons of veterans help back home, veterans centers, veterans health centers, VA. There's veterans homeless shelters, veterans homes where you can plug in and move into one of these places. There's veterans tiny homes in Colorado and a few places like that, where they'll actually give you a home on a piece of property. They'll give you the home in some cases that I've heard. I'm not that familiar with the names of these places, but I've seen them on some of these. Some reporters have covered some of this stuff. I'm sure you can look into it. You can move into these homes and you can stay there. They're your homes, you know, and they're really nice little places. And I'm sure those places would be great for somebody. Because if you're down and out, there's always some organization that can help you. It might take you a little while. Yeah, you're gonna have problems. You might have to stay in a shelter. Yes, shelters suck. You know, that's putting it bluntly. Most shelters suck. Some of the veteran shelters are okay, but if you're not an expat that it's a veteran, then you're probably going to have to go into one of the more not so nice shelters or what have you. And even then, you can kind of get help, and eventually they'll put you on Section 8 housing or whatever, depending on what state you're in. And remember, if you do go back home on a repatriation loan, go to a state such as like Massachusetts, or places like that where they will give you some sort of help, reach out to you and take you in and try to find you some housing, some help, some food, maybe get you some food stamps or what have you, what do they call it, SNAP or something like that, whatever they call it. You can get something like that for help. There are places to go, but don't ever consider suicide. Remember guys, you have that place that I told you about. I'm going to read it again here. Hold on one second. Okay. It's www.findahelpline.com. www.findahelpline.com. Or in the U.S., if you're in the U.S. and you need assistance, call 988 for a 24/7 confidential free crisis and emotional support help. And you can get that help. Don't ever be afraid to call a number or ask on a friend to help you. Don't ever be afraid to check into a hospital. You know, if you're in crisis and you think you're going to commit suicide, check into a hospital. No matter where you're at, and then, you know, that way there you'll be safer. Or call this hotline. It's free, confidential. At least they can kind of de-escalate your feelings on what you're thinking about doing. It might just be anxiety, or you're just in crisis. Maybe you don't want to commit suicide. Maybe you're so emotional you just need somebody to sit down and talk to. These are the places that can do it. And I believe the Philippines here, we have 4 places on there, 4 or 5 when I looked on there, that you can call and talk to. Or you can chat with, or whatever. Anyway, guys, God bless. I hope this helps a lot of people out there. Please write down the www.findahelpline.com in case you run into an expat that's in trouble, or maybe even yourself, or maybe even somebody that's not an expat. It doesn't have to be an expat in this case. It could be anybody in the Philippines that needs some help with emotional support, free crisis. It's confidential, emotional support, what have you. God bless, guys. Take care. I hope you enjoyed today's show.